Hi, welcome back to Codemaster Coach, your medical coding tutor. Okay, I've heard your responses, or I've read your responses, and I hear you loud and clear. You're ready to move on. Let's do some more. So today, I want to talk to you about ICD-10-CM and ICD-10-PCS. These are the classification systems that we use to do medical coding today. Now please understand, ICD-10 just came into effect October 1, 2015 of last year. It's been a long time coming and it's finally here. ICD-10-CM stands for International Classification of Diseases 10th Revision Clinical Modification. ICD-10-PCS stands for International Classification of Diseases 10th Revision Procedure Coding System. So understand that ICD-10-CM is what you use to code diagnoses, and ICD-10-PCS is what we use to code procedures. Now, again, it depends on what setting you're in, because in an outpatient setting, procedures are still coded with CPT, which is current procedural terminology, another classification system that we use so that physicians get reimbursed. But ICD-10-PCS is for facility reimbursement, and the two codes have to correspond. So on an inpatient medical record or charting, you'd use the CPT and the PCS code. But on an outpatient basis, we use the ICD-10-CM diagnoses along with the CPT procedure. And so I hope I'm explaining this, and I want to take this slow so that I make sure you're understanding what I'm saying. But today I just want to introduce you to ICD-10-CM, ICD-10-PCS. So ICD-10 replaced ICD-9, which is what we used up until October of last year, because with ICD-9 we ran out of numbers. We started classifying multiple diagnoses under one code because, again, we ran out of room. It was a 5-digit code. And once we got to 5 digits, as more and more diagnoses were found, we were just sticking them in under the 5th slot, and we just ran out of numbers. So we needed to advance to ICD-10. And the other reason is because other countries had already moved to I-10, and it was time for the United States to move. We should have been one of the first to move, but we're one of the last to move to ICD-10. So today we're using I-10. From time to time I'll do a comparison of I-9, only because we're still in that period where some claims, because you have up to 12 months on some claims to file them, if you saw a physician this time last year, your medical record would be coded with ICD-9 instead of ICD-10. But since October 1 of last year forward, your diagnoses and your procedures would be coded with I-10. If I compare I-9 to I-10, I-9 had a 3-digit category code. When I saw 382, I knew that was otitis. It was something to do with the ear, inflammation of the ear, or something to do with the ear. Well, the same thing with I-10. When I see H92, I know that's ear. The maximum number of characters for I-9 is 5 digits. Maximum number for I-10 is 7. So see, we've got room to expand with I-10 that we didn't have with I-9. Number of chapters in I-9, 17. I-10 has 21 chapters. Supplemental classifications, we have what's called a V code and an E code. If you go to your doctor and there's nothing wrong with you, it's just for a physical and they don't find anything wrong, well, I don't have a diagnosis to give you or to code you with, so it's a V code that says well exam or physical exam. Or if you're coming in for a lot of jobs require truck driver physicals, your newborn baby goes back for the 2-week checkup, it's called a well baby exam. If nothing's found wrong with the baby, then I don't have a number code to give it. I'd give you a V code. And then E codes, which is the other supplemental classification, are just that they start with the E and they give the extenuating circumstances behind what occurred. Was it a motor vehicle accident? Did you fall from a ladder? Was it a fight? Was it a piece of equipment that caused you to have an injury? So our codes would tell that. Well, in I-9, we had our V codes and our E codes. I-10, it's incorporated into the classification system. Laterality, right versus left. There is no laterality code in I-9, but in I-10 we do. There's a code for right arm, left arm, both arms. So I-10 gives you more specificity there. Is it alphanumeric or is it just numeric? Well, I-9 was a numeric classification except when we used our V code and our E codes. However, I-10 is an alphanumeric classification system. Each code begins with an alphabet, and it could end if the 7th digit, if your code goes to 7 digits, it tends to be an alphabet as well. So I-10 begins with an alphabet, could end with a number or an alphabet, but I-9 was straight numeric unless it was a V or an E code. Exclude notes, and as we get into the next video where I'm going to be talking about conventions, there's this thing called an exclude notes, and it would tell you when you get to this code, like a bladder infection or a yeast infection, it would tell you if it was a yeast that this particular code excludes a yeast infection. So you'd have an exclude note there that would tell you that. And that was in I-9. Well, I-10 has an exclude 1 and an exclude 2. And we'll talk a little more about that as well in the next video. And then dummy placeholders so that your code says exactly what you need it to say. I-9 did not have it, a dummy placeholder, but I-10 does. And what it's doing, it leaves room for growth. And we'll talk about that a little more as we get a little further into the classification system as well. I want to show you an example of what I mean when I compare I-9 codes to I-10 codes. I-9, I-10. I-9 codes have a 3-digit category code. I-10 codes have a 3-digit category code. I-9 codes can expand 4 and 5. I-10 codes can expand 4, 5, 6, 7. The further out the code goes, the more specificity of that code, the more detail it's telling you about that code. I-9 could go out as far as 5. I've seen it stop at 3, 4, and 5. Category, subcategory, subclassification. Same thing with I-10. Category, 3 digits. Subcategory, and subclassification. So as it expands, it's giving you more and more, greater and greater specificity. Okay? And I know this is probably hard to read, so if I need to electronically send you a version of my notes as we're studying along, I will gladly do that. My email address is codemastercoach@gmail.com. But in the meantime, if you would, I'm going to put a website address in the information box below for you to go to the CMS website, which is the how do I say it? Carolina Medical? No, it's a website that you can go to download the official coding guidelines. Everything that I could teach you about I-10 is going to be in this guideline that's posted at the CMS website, and that web address is www.cms Center for Medicare Medicaid Services came to me. CMS Center for Medicare Medicaid, so 1M, Services dot HHS Health Human Services .gov. If you go to that website, all of the guidelines that we're going to be talking about as far as I-10 and the whole classification system, when you pull that website up, www.cms.hhs.gov, in the option or information box, put in 2016 official coding guidelines, ICD-10. It will give you a printout, or it will list for you all of the guidelines. Now, if any of you have already an ICD-10 book, those guidelines can be found at the beginning of your code book. Different companies put them in different places, but majority of times you'll find them at the beginning of your code book before the actual code book starts. This is what it looks like. ICD-10 official guidelines for coding and reporting. Make sure you get the 2016. I-10, now that it's in effect, will be in effect for 2 years before it changes to allow everybody to come on board. So 2015, 2016 should be the same. And it's going to stay the same from October 1, 2015 through October 1, 2017. And that's when we should start seeing the changes that are going to be made, upgrades, as ICD-9 would do every year. But just wanted to show you an example of a book, a code book. Telling my age, when I started, I had 3 different books. But now you have one book, and you have volumes 1 and 2 in ICD-9, and the volume 3, which is the PCS, is a totally different book. But like for ICD-10-CM, I'd go to volume 2, not 1. 2 is your alphabetic index. I'd look up whatever I'm looking for. Say, for example, I'm looking up headache. I'd go to it's in alphabetical order. I'd look up headache. And if there's a particular type of headache, for example, tension headache, I'd go to headache. And I know you can't see this is so small. But we're going to get a little more. I'm going to figure out, if you guys can help me figure out a way to get this information across, I'd appreciate it. But we're going to go to headache, and then in the next video, we're going to talk about conventions and how this book is set up. But it directs you to a code. And when you look at that, it gives you a number. That code number is not a page. It's the actual code for the diagnoses. And then you go to that code that it gave you, and sure enough, it should say in volume 1, the code that you looked up, tension headache. But don't stress over that right now. Right now, the main thing I want you to do is understand the difference between ICD-10-CM and ICD-10-PCS, diagnoses, procedures. Go to the website, www.cms.hhs.gov, and look up the official coding guidelines 2016. And let's start building folders on our computer, or notebooks if we do everything manually. Let's start building our notebooks and start keeping track of this information and build as we learn ICD-10. Okay, guys, that's our start for today. And then where I'm going to go next is I'm going to break down volumes 1 and 2 of ICD-9 and talk about the conventions and different things that we see in the code book. So in the meantime, start trying to find you. Go to Amazon.com or wherever your library. Try your local library and see if they don't have it at the library. See if you can get it by loan. Because remember, libraries to libraries tend to work together, and you can go into the desk and ask if they could check with another local library in the next city or wherever to see if they can get that book in for you. And try to get an ICD-10-CM code book. Because again, right now we're still just learning, so I don't want you to put a lot of money into a code book. So if you can get one through your library or through a friend that might have one, or I'd even Google how to get access to a ICD-10 code book for learning purposes and see who's got one out there. I'm going to try to put one together for a giveaway, to do a giveaway on the ICD-10 code book. So that's in the makings right now because I know how hard it is to find. So work on, and then go to that website, download the guidelines, review those. Let's start getting this information down. If you have any questions, I'm reading your questions and your comments below the videos. If you want to talk to me personally, again, I'm at codemastercoach@gmail.com. And as I promised you, we got a long road ahead, but we can do this together, and we can do it so that everyone on board is understanding. If I'm losing you in any way, be sure and send me an email, and I'll answer your questions and try to help you through the process. But we're going to get this I-10 down, okay? All right. Stay in touch.